First, I would like to thank Al Farbman and Mike Kennedy for putting this symposium together. They put in a lot of hours and assembled an outstanding They've assembled truly an outstanding panel of experts, and I'm honored to share the stage with them today. To help provide a summary, I would like to briefly review some of the main points presented by the earlier speakers. Perhaps the essential point of the day is that within the scientific community, there is a strong consensus that greenhouse gases, especially carbon dioxide, added to the atmosphere by human activities, are leading to a rise in global temperatures. The impacts on the Earth and its biodiversity are as follows. Global warming will change the world's surface temperatures. Fresh water from melting glaciers will alter prevailing ocean currents. The increase in carbon dioxide will make the oceans more acidic. Acidic oceans will negatively affect marine organisms that incorporate calcium carbonate into their shells, especially coral and plankton. These organisms are keystone species of many marine ecosystems. Climate models for many years, such as for the Midwest, are mixed. Some say it will get warmer and wetter. Others say it will get warmer and drier. The latter scenario would have a huge negative impact on our agriculture. Wild plants and animals will be forced to migrate, adapt, or become extinct. Invasive species with their broad niche tolerances and latitudinal plasticity will have an advantage over native plants with more specific niche requirements. Many species will be driven to extinction as a result. Now I'm going to continue with some final remarks, which I have entitled Conservation for the 21st Century, Getting Us Through the Bottleneck. And the bottleneck I'm referring to is the 21st century itself, with its constraints on habitat and rising temperatures. During that time period, humans will be forced to face the following challenges. First, the reduction of our dependence on fossil fuels. Second, the development of sustainable manufacturing and agricultural systems. And third, as one of our questioners just alluded to, the stabilization of human populations. While this is happening, we will have to prevent the loss of many plant and animal species that are already under extreme pressure. Now this slide shows the hot spots that Stuart Pym was referring to earlier, and the red areas are the zones of highest biodiversity. Now, I'm a botanist, so I put everything in plant terms, but this is also basically true for animals as well. These red zones in the Western Hemisphere, and I think Stuart and also Tom were talking about the Atlantic forest here, of course the Amazon, also areas in Africa and Asia. All of these red areas are the hotspots that Stuart was referring to as areas that needed to be protected if we're going to maintain our worldwide biodiversity. I'm going to be talking a little bit about one of the areas I just visited last month. I was conducting some research down here in southern Mexico, in the cloud forest there. And I was really taken by the incredible biodiversity in this area. The cloud forest of Mexico, you don't think of Mexico, when you think of Mexico, you think of saguaro cacti and things like that, and sagebrush and that sort of thing, but there are actually areas high in the mountains in the south that are in the tropics that are zones of very high biodiversity, cloud forests. And these areas, even though they comprise only 1% of the land area of Mexico, actually account for 30% of the species diversity of Mexico. And Mexico is one of the most diverse countries in the world. Some people say the top 5. It's the 5th most diverse country in the world. And you can see that it's a very well-watered place. The water comes from the atmosphere, it comes out of the oceans, and then when the clouds drift over this area, the water becomes deposited in the mountaintops. Wonderfully diverse. Here's a tree fern. This is a highly endangered species, many endangered species there. And you can see that not only will this formation, this plant community face dramatic challenges during episodes of global warming, but also there's a problem with habitat destruction, as was referred to earlier. And if you look in this photograph here, you can see this area was a forest clearing. There's another one over here. And so what's happening is, even though this is high in the mountains, there are farmers who are trying to farm in these upper elevations. And the elevations go from about 7,000 to 9,000 feet. Here. Before I go on, I want to talk a little bit about this sign here. I was asked to try to be hopeful about things, and this sign is an example of some hope for the future. These lands are owned communally by a Native American group called the Mihe. And so these lands are jointly owned, and they're very conscious about trying to preserve their forests. And you can see here, this is a sign for, most of this is in Mihe, so it's unintelligible to me, but it says Vivero Communal. This is a communal reforestation project. You can see reforestation here. And so in that particular area, they were trying to reforest. So the local people in this area are conscious of the conservation problem, and they're trying to reforest their own lands. So I felt that was a very positive thing, and that's why it's there. And this will give you an idea of the tremendous diversity in this area. This was at one collection site, and it was just sort of like a cliff face that had water coming off of the top, and there were just hundreds and hundreds of flowers on this cliff face. And this was just at one stop, and there were hundreds more. This is just a sort of an odd collection of those, just to give you an idea of the beauty and diversity of what's up there. But there's not only beauty and diversity in the tropics, also here closer to home in Illinois. This area was once covered by tallgrass prairie, and it was the dominant vegetation of Illinois in pre-contact times. And unfortunately, much of that prairie, much of that pre-contact environment is gone now, and it exists only in very small fragmented habitats that are distributed throughout Illinois and other places. In Illinois, there's less than 1% of tallgrass prairie left. And what does remain is just in small isolated pockets, like this one at the Midday-One tallgrass prairie. And this is a wonderfully diverse and beautiful formation. But many of the plant species found in tallgrass prairie are on the verge of extinction because so much of the habitat is lost. Now, because their habitat is so fragmented, when we get into a global warming situation, these plants are not going to be able to migrate very easily because they exist as small islands surrounded by agricultural zones. So there's going to be a real problem with maintaining the biodiversity of Illinois. Currently, there are over 300 species of plants that are either threatened or endangered right here in the state of Illinois. Now, one thing that we can do about this is to create enough nature reserves and also connect them with corridors, as Dr. Lovejoy suggested. And I think this is a great idea. Another possibility is what we're doing at the Chicago Botanic Garden. We're creating a seed bank of all of the plants of the tallgrass prairie. And so we're going to put all of these in cold storage so that we'll have examples of all of the plants from the tallgrass prairie, so that hopefully as we get through the bottleneck of the next century, we'll still have the germplasm of all of the plants of the tallgrass prairie so that we can restore areas when asked to do so. Now, we're doing this project in cooperation with the Millennium Seed Bank. This is an initiative that was started at the Royal Botanic Gardens, Kew in England. And what they're doing is they're trying to collect seeds of all of the dry land areas and put them in their seed bank for the purpose of restoring habitat in the future. And we are part of that larger project. But we'll have a copy of the seeds of the tallgrass prairie here, and we'll also send a copy of those seeds to England. Now, in the future, trying to preserve the habitats and reconstruct habitats for endangered species and habitat that's disappearing, and also plants that are disappearing in the face of global warming will require a lot of hands. And restoring habitat is not simply a matter of just taking the seeds and dispersing them out across the landscape. You have to understand what's all the symbionts of the plants, how plants reseed themselves, and what the pollinators are, what the soil symbionts are, and also the genetic diversity of that plant. So all of these things require a lot of hands, and right now there are not very many schools that train people in plant conservation. So we have created a new program in collaboration with Northwestern University. It's a graduate program in plant biology and conservation. And through this program, we will be training the plant conservation biologists of the future. So in conclusion, to get us through the bottleneck, we must do the following. First, protect the most threatened ecosystems. This is in situ conservation. Also, we must rely on botanical gardens and zoos to act as modern arks to harbor endangered species. This is ex situ conservation. And also, we can bank the seeds of endangered plants so that when we get through the bottleneck, when it comes time to restore areas, we can do so. Using these various approaches, we can conserve our world's biodiversity. Optimistically, by the end of this century, the world community will have addressed the underlying problems of global warming and will be able to support sustainable systems that maintain biodiversity into the future. Thank you.